Welcome, witnesses to the impossible fusion of perfect evolution and absolute undeath. Today, we're diving into what happens when the galaxy's most efficient killers invade a city that's already dead, where acid blood meets plague, and where the Forsaken discover that some organisms are too perfect, even for those who've conquered death itself. In the depths beneath Lordaeron's ruins, something unprecedented occurred. The Xenomorphs, those perfect killing machines, encountered an enemy they couldn't infect, couldn't implant, couldn't use. The Forsaken had already died once, but what started as immunity became something far more terrifying. A transformation that would make the Queen herself evolve beyond biological limits, force the Lich King to intervene from his frozen throne, and create hybrids that existed between life, death, and void itself. This is the testimony of someone who watched two perfect forces, the ultimate survivors and the already dead, merge into something that would make even the old gods take notice. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. The first screams came from the sewers beneath Lordaeron, not the usual moans of the Forsaken or the chittering of plague rats. These were different, sharp, metallic, like blades scraping against stone mixed with something alive that shouldn't exist in our dead city. I was Master Apothecary Farinel's assistant then. We thought we understood death. We thought nothing could surprise those who had already died once. The Undercity was ours, a kingdom of the damned where the living feared to tread. We were wrong. The maintenance crew found the first bodies near the old collapsed tunnel that connected to Tirisfal's deepest caverns. 3 Forsaken workers, not just destroyed, dissolved. Their bones eaten through by something that made our strongest plagues look like spring water. The acid had burned straight through enchanted Lordaeron stone, through metal pipes, through everything. Dark Lady Sylvanas arrived within the hour. She studied the scene with those burning red eyes. She touched the acid-scarred stone and her fingers came away smoking. Even her undead flesh reacted to whatever substance had killed our people. She ordered the tunnels sealed, every entrance, every drain, every possible access point to the surface world, but it was already too late. The second attack happened in the apothecarium itself. I was cataloguing plague samples when apprentice Jeremiah burst through the door. Half his face was melted away, not by our chemicals, by something that had grabbed him from above. From the ceiling vents, we never bothered to guard because what could threaten the dead? The creature dropped into our laboratory like a nightmare made flesh, black as the void, elongated skull that seemed to mock the very concept of life, inner jaw that shot forward with hydraulic force, and that tail, a weaponized spine that moved faster than thought. Master Farinel threw a vial of concentrated blight at it. The creature shrieked as the plague ate into its exoskeleton. But its blood, oh, its blood, the acid sprayed across our workspace, through our tables, through our samples, through 2 apprentices who ceased to exist in seconds. Even undeath couldn't survive complete molecular dissolution. The creature fled into the vents, leaving us to process what we'd witnessed. Farinel immediately began collecting samples of the acid blood from the floor. His excitement was palpable. Here was something new, something that could destroy even the undead. A weapon or a curse, depending on who controlled it. Sylvanas ordered full mobilization. Every Dark Ranger, every Death Guard, every abomination we could field. She sent word to Orgrimmar that the Undercity was under quarantine. No one in, no one out. This threat would not spread to the living. Not because she cared about them, but because she understood that these creatures needed living hosts for something, and she wanted to see what happened when they encountered a city of the dead. The first coordinated attack came 3 days later. They moved through the vent systems like water. Like shadow, they'd mapped our city from above, learned our patterns. Our gathered forces meant nothing when the enemy came from every direction at once. But then we witnessed something extraordinary, something that changed everything. A facehugger. That's what the creatures used to reproduce, we learned later. It latched onto Death Guard Marcus's face. The finger-like appendages tightened, the tail wrapped around his throat, and then nothing. It clung there for hours, days. Marcus kept walking his patrol route with this thing attached to his face. He couldn't see, but he didn't need to breathe. He didn't need to eat. The creature eventually died and fell off. Starvation, we theorized. It couldn't implant its embryo in dead tissue, couldn't find a living host in a city of corpses. Sylvanas laughed when she heard the report. A genuine laugh that echoed through the throne room. The perfect killers had found the one enemy they couldn't defeat. The already dead, but the Xenomorphs adapted. They always adapt. That's what makes them perfect. They stopped trying to reproduce through us, started building something else, deep in the ruins beneath the Undercity, in chambers even we had forgotten existed. Lord Godfrey's scouts reported structures, organic structures, like hives, like nests, made from secreted resin mixed with dissolved organic matter. They were building without needing hosts. That's when we met her, the Queen. She was magnificent in her horror, 3 times the height of an abomination, her crown-like crest scraping against the chamber ceiling, her second set of arms delicate yet deadly. She'd established herself in the ancient Lordaeron crypts, the deepest point beneath our city, and she was laying eggs, hundreds of them, without hosts, without implantation, pure parthenogenesis, creating an army from nothing but will and biological imperative. Sylvanas led the assault herself, 50 Forsaken warriors, our strongest, our most loyal. The Queen's drones met us in the tunnels. The battle was unlike anything in the Third War. No battle cries, no honor, just silent efficiency meeting undead determination, acid blood versus plague, molecular dissolution versus necromantic animation. We lost 30 soldiers in the first 10 minutes, not to death, to complete annihilation. No bodies to raise, no spirits to bind, just empty spaces where warriors used to stand. But we learned, the Forsaken have always been survivors. We started using longer weapons, crossbows with plagued bolts, catapults with blight canisters, fighting from distance, using our immunity to their reproductive cycle as an advantage. We couldn't be infected, we couldn't be used, we could only be destroyed, and we'd been destroyed before. Have you ever wondered which of Azeroth's corruptions would claim them first? Drop your theories in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in thinking about this. The Queen retreated deeper, always deeper, and Sylvanas ordered us to follow. Not to destroy, to study, to understand. She saw what Master Farinell saw, potential. These creatures were weapons, perfect weapons that could devastate the living while leaving the undead to inherit what remained. The Royal Apothecary Society established a research station at safe distance. We began collecting specimens, dead drones, acid samples, broken eggs, every piece of biological data we could gather without losing more Forsaken to dissolution. Farinell worked day and night, studying their biology through the lens of undeath. Could we replicate their acid? Could we incorporate it into our plagues? Could we create something that dissolved the living but left the undead intact? But the Xenomorphs weren't passive subjects. They studied us too, learned that we felt no fear, no pain, that we couldn't be broken psychologically. So they tried something else. They started targeting our infrastructure, the plague pumps that kept our city running, the necromantic crystals that maintained our existence. They were trying to cut us off from our source of undeath itself. The Queen understood us better than we thought. She'd identified the weakness we didn't know we had. The Undercity ran on delicate systems, plague distribution networks, necromantic resonance points. Without them, we weren't immortal. We were just corpses pretending otherwise. Her drones struck the main plague reservoir first, 12 Xenomorphs moving in perfect synchronization. They broke through reinforced stone like it was parchment. Their acid blood mixed with our concentrated blight reserves. The chemical reaction created something unprecedented, a vapor that dissolved organic matter at the molecular level while leaving metal and stone intact. 3 city blocks ceased to exist, not destroyed, erased. Even the ghosts couldn't manifest there anymore. Sylvanas responded by opening channels to unexpected allies. She sent ravens to Acheris, to the Ebon Blade. If Xenomorphs were the perfect killers, perhaps Death Knights were the perfect response. Beings who commanded death itself against creatures that embodied survival at any cost. But she also sent a different message, one that would have been unthinkable before. To Northrend, to Icecrown, to the Frozen Throne, the Lich King responded. Not Arthas, he was gone. This was Bolvar for Dragon, the burned champion who held the Scourge in check. His voice echoed through the necromantic channels that connected all undead. He'd sensed the Xenomorphs the moment they'd entered our realm, felt their alien presence like a discordant note in Death's symphony. And he was interested, very interested. He sent us something, not soldiers, not Death Knights. Information, ancient information from when the Titans walked Azeroth. There had been other invasive species before, other perfect organisms that consumed worlds. The Titans had protocols, containment procedures, but also warnings. These creatures, these Xenomorphs, they weren't just biological weapons. They were something older, something that existed between definitions of life and death. Master Farinell used this knowledge to conduct new experiments. He discovered that xenomorph acid wasn't truly acid. It was a biological compound that existed in quantum flux. It dissolved matter by convincing molecular bonds that they'd never existed. That's why it worked on undead tissue. It didn't destroy us, it unmade us. The Queen, meanwhile, had evolved her strategy. Her eggs started hatching different types of drones, specialized castes we'd never seen. Some with thicker armor that could withstand our plagues, others with extended inner jaws that could pierce Death Knight rune plates, and most disturbing, some that seemed to phase partially out of reality. Walking through walls, through weapons, through spells, she was adapting to every defense we mounted, learning from every encounter, becoming more dangerous with each passing hour. That's when High Executor Mavren suggested the unthinkable. If we couldn't fight them conventionally, perhaps we could corrupt them, turn them into something else, something we could control. The Valkyr were summoned, those dark angels that served Sylvanas. They attempted to raise a Xenomorph drone that had been killed by concentrated blight. The ritual took 3 days. The amount of necromantic energy required drained 6 necromancers to true death. But it worked, sort of. The risen Xenomorph was wrong, even by Forsaken standards. It moved in stutters, like reality kept rejecting its existence. Its acid blood had become something else, a substance that didn't dissolve matter but transformed it. Everything it touched became partially Xenomorph, partially undead, partially something that shouldn't exist. We lost control of it immediately. It fled into the depths, creating more abominations as it went. Hybrid creatures, plague rats with inner jaws, undead spiders secreting resin, the very stones of the Undercity beginning to grow organic components. Our home was transforming into something alien. If you had their power in Azeroth, would you choose Alliance, Horde, or stay neutral? Tell me in the comments, I'll be reading them. The transformation attracted attention from powers we'd hoped would ignore us. The old gods stirred in their prisons. N'Zoth's whispers echoed through the contaminated sections. These Xenomorphs were close enough to the Void's philosophy of consumption and adaptation that the old gods saw kindred spirits, or tools. With the old gods, it was always hard to tell the difference. Twilight's hammer cultists started appearing in the ruins. They called the Xenomorphs the true children, claimed they were sent to prepare Azeroth for the Void Lords. Some cultists offered themselves as willing hosts. The results were catastrophic. Xenomorphs implanted with old god corruption, drones that whispered madness, facehuggers that implanted not just embryos but void corruption directly into the soul. Sylvanas had to make a choice. She could let this continue and risk the Xenomorphs becoming something even worse, or she could do what she'd sworn never to do: ask for help. From the living, the message went to both factions simultaneously, to Stormwind, to Orgrimmar. The Undercity was compromised, not by plague, not by scourge, by something that threatened all existence on Azeroth. The Xenomorphs had to be stopped before they spread to the surface, before they found living hosts, before they became numerous enough to overwhelm even the combined might of the Alliance and Horde. The responses were predictable. The Alliance wanted to burn the entire city, purge it with holy fire, end the Forsaken threat and the Xenomorph threat in one action. The Horde was divided. Some supported Sylvanas, others saw an opportunity to remove a problematic war chief. But while the politicians debated, the situation deteriorated. The Queen had established secondary hives, 3 of them, each protected by evolved drones, each producing eggs at an exponential rate. And worse, she'd started doing something new, communicating, not with words, not with thoughts, with pheromones that affected even undead nervous systems. She was rewriting our base programming, making some Forsaken see the hive as home, as family, as the only true path to survival. We started losing people not to death, but to conversion. Forsaken who willingly joined the hive, who helped build resin structures, who protected eggs like they were their own children. Master Farinell was among the first to turn. I watched him walk into the Queen's chamber carrying all his research, all his samples. He knelt before her, and she touched his head with something almost resembling gentleness. He started secreting resin within hours, his undead body transforming into something between Forsaken and Xenomorph. Still intelligent, still himself, but utterly devoted to the hive. The Royal Apothecary Society fractured. Some followed Farinell, others fled to the surface, breaking Sylvanas' quarantine. They carried samples with them: acid blood, resin compounds, eggs. They thought they could study these things safely in other laboratories, in living cities. They were wrong, of course, but they didn't know that yet. The Lich King made his move. He sent his champions not to help, but to collect. Death Knights descended on the Undercity with containment units. They wanted Xenomorph specimens for Icecrown, The Lich King had plans. He always had plans. If he could combine the Xenomorphs with the Scourge, if he could create undead that carried acid blood, if he could birth a new kind of death that even holy magic couldn't purify. 3 Death Knights made it to the Queen's primary chamber. They fought through hundreds of drones, their runeblades carved through chitin and sinew. Their death magic withered organic matter. But the Queen herself was beyond them. She'd grown, evolved. Her acid blood had become something more potent. It dissolved not just matter, but magic itself. Runes failed, unholy presence wavered. Death grips found no purchase. She killed all 3, then did something unprecedented. She consumed them, not just their bodies, their essence, their connection to the frozen throne, and through that connection, she touched the Lich King's mind. Bolvar's scream echoed across all of Northrend. Every undead on the continent felt it. The Queen had shown him something, a vision of what she could become, what her children would become, not just perfect killers, perfect survivors. And she offered him a choice, alliance or extinction. The Lich King's answer came in the form of frost. Every surface in the Undercity suddenly crystallized with ice. Not normal ice, necromantic ice that existed at absolute zero. Ice that froze molecular motion itself. The Xenomorphs slowed. Their acid blood thickened. For a moment, we thought Bolvar had saved us. But the Queen adapted. She always adapted. Her body temperature shifted, generating heat through chemical reactions we couldn't understand. The ice around her sublimated directly to vapor. Her drones followed suit, their metabolisms accelerating to impossible levels. They moved through the frozen Undercity like living furnaces, leaving tunnels of steam in their wake. Sylvanas made her final decision. If the Undercity couldn't be saved, it would be weaponized. She ordered the complete release of all plague reserves. Every experiment, every prototype, every doomsday compound the Royal Apothecary Society had ever created. Not to kill the Xenomorphs, to transform the entire city into something so toxic that nothing, not even perfect organisms, could survive there. The living factions detected the plague release immediately. Jaina Proudmoore teleported to the gates with a full battalion of mages. They began erecting barriers, trying to contain what was coming. But they didn't understand. This wasn't about containing a plague. This was about containing evolution itself. The Xenomorphs and plagues met in the city's heart. The chemical reaction created colors that shouldn't exist, sounds that broke glass a mile away. The very air became solid in places, gaseous in others. Reality struggled to maintain coherence. And in that chaos, something new emerged. Hybrid organisms that were neither xenomorph, nor undead, nor plague. They existed in a state of constant transformation, constantly dying, constantly being reborn, constantly evolving. They spread not through infection or implantation, but through proximity. Just being near them caused matter to question its own stability. The old gods took notice. Real notice. Sethun's eye opened beneath Silithus. Yogg-Saron stirred in Ulduar. They recognized something in these new creatures, a reflection of the Void's ultimate truth. That existence itself was just a temporary arrangement of possibilities, and these hybrids were proving it. And Zoth sent his servants in force. Faceless ones poured into the Undercity from forgotten depths. They didn't come to fight. They came to witness, to worship, to accelerate. They fed void energy directly into the transformation zones. The hybrids began manifesting abilities that violated physics. Teleportation through acid, replication through thought, existence in multiple locations simultaneously. The Queen absorbed it all. Every plague, every void whisper, every fragment of undeath. She grew beyond biological limitations. Her crown spread until it touched the chamber ceiling. Her body elongated until she was more architecture than organism. She was becoming a living hive, a singular entity that existed as both individual and collective. Sylvanas entered the Queen's chamber alone, Dark Lady to Dark Mother. They regarded each other across the transformed space. Sylvanas offered something, not battle, not submission, partnership, the Forsaken and the Xenomorphs, the dead and the perfect. Together they could create something that would survive anything. Even the Void Lords, even the Burning Legion, even death itself. The Queen's response was to extend her inner jaw. Not to attack, to taste. She sampled Sylvanas' essence, her banshee nature, her connection to the Shadowlands. And through that taste, she understood something that changed everything. Death on Azeroth wasn't final. It was just another state of being. The Shadowlands existed, souls persisted. Death was broken, and the Xenomorphs could exploit that break. They could evolve beyond physical existence, become perfect killers, not just of bodies, but of souls. The transformation began immediately. Xenomorphs throughout the hive started manifesting ethereal properties. Their acid blood gained the ability to dissolve spirit as well as flesh. Their drones could phase between the material plane and the Shadowlands. The Queen herself began existing in both realms simultaneously. This drew the attention of beings we'd only heard about in whispers, the eternal ones of the Shadowlands. The jailer himself took notice. Here was something that could threaten his plans, or accelerate them. Xenomorphs that could hunt in the realm of death, that could consume anima directly, that could evolve beyond the cycle of life and death entirely. But something else happened, something none of us expected. The hybrid creatures, the ones born from plague and xenomorph and void, they started demonstrating independence. Not following the Queen, not serving the old gods, not obeying anyone. They were truly perfect, perfectly autonomous, perfectly unpredictable, perfectly free. They spread through the Undercity like thought, converting everything they touched into more of themselves, but also different versions of themselves, each one unique, each one evolving in its own direction. The Undercity wasn't being conquered, it was becoming something that had never existed before. Thrall arrived with the Horde's shamanistic circles. They tried to contain the transformation with elemental barriers, fire to burn, earth to bury, water to dilute, air to disperse. But the hybrids adapted to each element, became living fire that spread through combustion, transformed earth into organic stone, turned water into acid rain, made air itself infectious. The Alliance and Horde had to work together, had to combine every magic at their disposal. Light and void, arcane and fell, nature and death, all focused on one goal. Not destroying the Xenomorphs, not saving the Undercity, but preventing the transformation from spreading beyond Lordaeron. They succeeded. Partially. The barriers held. The transformation was contained, but it wasn't stopped. Inside those barriers, evolution continued, accelerated. The Xenomorphs, the Forsaken, the Plagues, the Void corruption, they all merged into something unprecedented. Sylvanas made one last transmission before the barriers sealed completely. She wasn't asking for rescue, wasn't warning of danger. She was announcing victory. The Forsaken had found their ultimate purpose, not to serve the Horde, not to seek vengeance on the living, but to become something beyond death, beyond life, beyond definition. The Undercity still exists, behind those barriers, constantly monitored by both factions. Sometimes we hear things from inside, sounds that don't match any known language. Sometimes we see things, shadows that move wrong, lights that darkness can't explain. And sometimes, just sometimes, we detect life signs, but not life as we understand it. The Queen still rules there, or perhaps she's become there. The entire city might be her body now, her consciousness, her egg. We don't know, we can't know, because anyone who enters doesn't come back. Not because they die, because they become part of the transformation, part of the evolution, part of something perfect. The Xenomorphs won, but so did the Forsaken, and so did the Void, and so did death. They all won by becoming something else, something that makes the original Xenomorphs look primitive, something that makes the Lich King seem quaint, something that waits behind those barriers, not plotting, not planning, just evolving, always evolving, and sometimes when the wind blows just right from Tirisfal, you can smell it. Not plague, not decay, not acid, but possibility. The smell of something that could become anything will become everything. Given enough time, the barriers won't hold forever. Magic fails, vigilance weakens, time erodes all things. And when those barriers fall, we'll discover what the Undercity has become, what the Xenomorphs have become, what we all might become. Perfect, perfectly alien, perfectly adapted, perfectly inevitable. Some say it's Azeroth's doom waiting in those ruins. Others say it's our salvation. A few even claim it's both. That doom and salvation were always the same thing, just seen from different angles. That the Xenomorphs didn't invade the Undercity. They completed it, gave it the purpose it always lacked, the chance to become what it was always meant to be, the final evolution of death itself.